Hello, and welcome back to the internet. I'm pretty sleepy today, but I have time to record, so let's read some stories. My children will be paying the same rate as me. So I'm now the owner of a landscaping business that my father started. He retired last year. He still checks in and helps a lot on the business end of things until I get my footing. We work in a city in South Florida, and about 95% of our customers are above the age of 60. My dad has 3 clients that we charge at a very low rate because they've used him since the start of the business. 2 out of the 3 are great. They understand that they're being charged a low rate and love us for it. But we have one lady that is very hard to deal with. My dad refuses to let go of her contract without a legitimate reason. That's just who my dad is. She has 2 daughters and they both own homes with their husbands. We get a call from this lady asking us to take on her daughters. I told her if she would like to give them our number, I can talk with them and get it figured out. I was doing this as a favor to my dad, really, because adding the 2 extra properties right now stretches us pretty thin, and I'll probably have to help out as well as my cousin, who basically manages the crews. Anyone will tell you, expanding with a landscaping company is not as easy as it seems, and it's bordering along the impossible without proper planning. So one of the 2 daughters calls in and gives me their details, and I told them I could come out and meet them and give them an estimate as soon as possible. That was met with a few seconds of silence, and followed by, my mom had told me about the rate she paid, and we were under the assumption that we'd be paying those same rates. I say, unfortunately, we won't be able to do that, ma'am. We gave her a special discount for being with us for so long. Says, well, she's my mom, and I'm sure she won't be happy to hear about this. I say, okie dokie. She hangs up. So I didn't think anything of it. Tell my pops what happened. We had a laugh about it and how entitled the people where we live are. Late that night, I get a call from the crazy lady, who says, let me explain something to you. We have a way of doing things in this town, and you just broke Rule 1. The customer is always right. You told me you would take on my daughters, and I expect you to do just that. I say, I told your daughters I could take them on, but not at the same rate. I never said that I'd be charging them the same rate. Says, yes, you absolutely did, and I expect you to hold to your word like your father would. He would be so disappointed in you right now. I'm guessing she didn't know my dad still took part in the business because he avoids her at all costs. I say, okay ma'am, I'll see what I can do. She says, you better. This is just not how you do business. I say, okay. I went to my dad and told him about it. He told me to end her contract. I told him I had a better idea, and he agreed to it. Now, I say contract, but it's just a monthly billing for her contract, due to it being so low. So I call her back the next day. I say, hello there, Mrs. Old Hag. It's me, your landscaping company, calling you back. She says, I hope you have some good news, because I still feel slighted. I say, oh, I have some news. We will be giving your daughters the same rate as you insisted. She says, perfect. When can I tell them you'll be over? I say, we'll get to that, but we have to discuss your new rates first. She says, what new rates? I didn't agree to new rates. I say, oh, well, you requested to pay the same amount as your daughters, so we've taken away the special discount we've given you, and your new rate will be $800 a month. That will start in 2 months from now. What came after was an incoherent screaming and her hanging up. She called back the next day but refused to talk with me. She tried talking with my cousin, but he referred her to me. She tried getting a hold of my dad, but he shut off his work cell long ago. She eventually calls back and tried to negotiate with me, but I told her it was all at her request, and too late to go back on it. She dropped us the next month. She had been a thorn in my dad's side for so long. He was relieved when I told him about the call. He didn't want me to have the extra stress of dealing with her anyway. You know, I used to work for a landscaping company too, and I'm sure this will shock many of you, but $800 a month is a bit steep for landscaping. I know we kind of forget this when it comes to like giant companies, but whenever you have some sort of business transaction with somebody, it really is just an instance of you saying, I value the service or product more than the money, and you value the money more than the service or product you're giving. So it really is just an equal trade where technically both of you come out ahead. So when these people come out and say the customer is always right, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you're both on equal grounds, then really neither of you should have a clear advantage. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm just gonna move on now. My first personal encounter with Karen. This happened 1 week ago, a Monday, my worst day in over 5 years. So I'm a locksmith by trade, and the job requires me to be up on ladders fixing doors and locks and whatever else is broken on a door. I was working on the main entrance door to a large second-hand store. Sometimes I had to block off an entryway to fix a door, and if I do, I always try to find another option for customers to enter and exit the building. I opened an emergency exit door off to the right, maybe 10 feet away, of where I was working to make sure there was a door they could use. I'm working away, minding my own business, up on a ladder, listening to my audiobook on my Bluetooth headset, when entitled Karen and child walked towards me. Says, excuse me, I need to get in the store. I was like, well, this entry is out of order right now, but I need in now. You can't block the door. I was like, yes, well, if you let me finish what I was saying. Says, you need to move out of my way. I was like, there's a door over there. You can go in there. She says, no, this one is closer. I say, look, stop bothering me and go over there. This is when Karen takes things to the next level. And by the next level, I mean she gets arrested. Karen had none of my yelling at her. She grabs her son by the wrist, who had been standing by, saying nothing, and tries to climb under my ladder while I'm on it. Her large purse caught on the side rung of the ladder and pulled it over, sending me, my tools, and the motor of the handicap operator I was working on smashing to the ground. I fell on my shoulder, breaking my collarbone and dislocating my shoulder. The motor hit the ground and shattered, and the ladder fell on her and her son. A cashier who saw the whole thing through the window rushed over to see if I was okay. I said no, something is broken, a bit in shock. Called the police and an ambulance. They arrive, and the police take statements, and I tell them I want to press charges before I was loaded up in the ambulance and taken to the hospital. The kid's father came to get the kid, who was not hurt, thankfully, and she was taken away in handcuffs. No word yet on the court date or anything. Since then, I've been off work, in pain, all because Karen wanted some second-hand crap. I mean, to be fair, you were requesting quite a lot from her. I mean, who in their right mind just tells someone to walk an extra 10 feet? But in all seriousness though, was it really worth walking under the ladder? Tech support failure in the making. I'm not really in a tech support role at my job, but I know this really amazing trick where you Google error messages and follow instructions to fix problems. So I'm the go-to person whenever something isn't working. I recently put in my notice and they decided not to replace me, so I'm training one of my coworkers to take over some of my workload. Like me, this coworker doesn't have a background in IT. But unlike me, I don't think she's willing to put in the work and learn the minimal amount of things she needs to know to get by. I've already told my manager that I don't think she's a good fit, and they should hire someone else for this role. They refuse to take my advice, but hey, at least I get some funny stories for the internet. Last week, I walked this computer through one of our processes. Upload an Excel file to our company website and generate various reports. It's really simple stuff, but many employees struggle with the system, so I wanted to get her familiar with it and all possible issues that might arise, since she will be tasked with helping users. After I've shown her an example, I tell her to try creating an Excel file and go through the process on her own. I leave for 5 minutes, and when I come back, she immediately calls me over and says it's not working. I say, it's fine to take some time to figure it out. I'd rather you try to do it on your own first. She says, no, I did it exactly as you showed me. Come and have a look. I say, is there an error message? Maybe you can try figuring it out. She says, I've already tried 10 times and it's not working. She insists until I go over and look at her computer screen. Immediately, I see a red error message on the page that says, maximum file size 100 megabyte exceeded. I say, so as it says here, the problem is that the file is too big. She says, that's not possible. It can't be that big. I don't know its size, but I'm sure it's much, much smaller. I say, let's check the size of this file. I had no idea you could even make Excel files that big. This file is 1.5 gigabytes. She says, yes, like I said, it's smaller than 100. I say, 1.5 gigabytes is bigger than 100 megabytes. Coworker, surprised Pikachu face. I'm almost sad I won't be around to watch when they put her in charge and the entire system crashes and burns. Yeah, that definitely doesn't sound promising if you have an IT person that doesn't even know the difference between megabytes and gigabytes. But now that I think about it, I wonder how big my word list document is. Wow, so even that list of words I made that is over 15,000 lines long is 1/4 of 1 megabyte. So that is a good question of how you got a 1.5 gigabyte file. Telescammer? Let's see how quick you are. So I received a robocall on my work phone, paid for by the employer, not attached to my name or info in any way, the other day, and did inform me of some suspicious activity around my social security number, and it asked me to please press 1 to be connected with an officer right away, in order to prevent your arrest warrant from getting posted. I was driving across Wyoming, and bored out of my mind, so I decided to see how far down the rabbit hole I could go. I pressed 1. They picked up right away. Must have been a slow day in Shandurthi, India, and a gentleman with a thick accent said, hello, how may I direct your call? So I put the highest level of concern and anxiety in my voice and said, I just received a call from you guys saying that there's been some suspicious activity attached to my social security number and I don't want to go to jail. I could hear the Dr. Eggman smile in his voice when he replied, yes, I see that now. Can you verify the warrant number that was given to you? There was no warrant number. I said, I don't want to go to jail. How do we take care of this right away? He asked me to verify my name and the last 4 digits of my social security number. So I neatly obliged. Richard Long, 6789. I heard some typing, and after a few seconds, the scammer replied, ah, I see your record now, Mr. Long. It looks like there are 4 warrants in your name from the IRS. We can get these reduced to fines only, which you can pay with Visa gift cards. Can you verify a full social security number for me? Oh, good. I was really worried, I replied. I can't go to jail. You know what they do to me in there? The other inmates would want to do things to me. I have a very feminine body. Says, "Oh yes, of course they would," says Mr. Scammer. "It would not be a good time. All you need to do is verify your full social security with me, and we can proceed with the payments of your fines." "Oh yes, of course. It's 123456789, I stammer. There was silence on his end of the line. Finally, he comes back and says, "Sir, do you think this is a joke?" "Absolutely not," I replied, as indignantly as possible. "That is my social security number. Double check it right away. My name is Richard Long, but my friends call me Dick. I work in the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, and I can't go to jail." There was another moment of silence. I thought for sure this dimwit had finally hung up on me. Then he came back on the line. "Dick Long?" "Yes, sir." Oh my gosh. This was followed again by a moment of silence. Then the most satisfying scream of frustration, and a resounding click as he hung up on me. Ron White was right. You can't fix stupid. The Hoax Hotel would be proud. I've mentioned this guy's channel a few times before, but this guy called the Hoax Hotel on YouTube, he basically reaches out and calls scammers just to waste their time, and his most recent video was this exact scam of people doing like social security fraud. I mean, if you're looking for a good laugh, I highly recommend his channel. The only reason I never watch his videos anymore is because I already saw all of them. And yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how long he can keep them on the line sometimes. Well, it's time we moved on to the question, which is, Dads of Reddit, what's your best "don't tell mom" story? I'm the son in this story, but one time when I was like 14 or 15, we had a family party at my aunt's house down the street. Eventually, the party just died down, and all the family started to go home. My dad decided to stay, and I asked if I could stay with him. Eventually, it was just my uncles and my dad drinking and telling stories at 2 a.m. while I just sat and listened to them. It was the first time that I could remember staying up with the adults. It was a cool moment. Anyways, my dad got too drunk to drive us home, and no one else was there. We could have spent the night, but then my dad was like, "No, I know your aunt has bicycles in the garage. We should just ride bikes home. It'll take 10 minutes tops." So my dad and I rode bikes home, but my dad took a detour at an old park near my house. We started doing wheelies and donuts with our bicycles on a giant grass field. Well, at least we tried. My dad was pretty drunk, so we were having a fun time falling over basically. We finally get home at 3 in the morning, and we're covered in mud and grass. My dad looks over at me and whispers, "Okay, we have to be quiet, sneaking back in. Don't tell Mom what we did. She's going to be pissed if she finds out we rode bikes while I was drunk." Then he proceeded to knock on the door, and when my mom answered the door, he proceeded to tell her with glee exactly what he told me not to tell her. My mom was indeed pissed. Well, I mean, it could have gone worse. I thought that they were just going to have the 14-year-old be the designated driver. That the reason the police and the fire department came to our neighborhood was because we were shooting off fireworks before the wife got home. See, that's why you take your fireworks out into the desert and you can be as dangerous as you want with them. My dad and I were driving on the road at night, after my mom had specifically said I wasn't allowed to. When we pulled up to the street before my house, we switched drivers so it looked like he drove home. When doing that, he slipped and fell and cut his head open and had to get stitches down his forehead. My mom still thinks it was from a thorn bush in our front yard. Man, if you get that serious of an injury just from climbing out of the car, imagine what would happen if you tried doing something actually dangerous. Whenever my mom would leave town for work, my dad would tell me and my sisters it was "make up your vegetables night." And we got to have pizza for dinner as long as we told Mom we had vegetables while she was away. We got busted when each of us answered with a different vegetable than the others did. See, this is why you just put the vegetables on the pizza and then everyone can get their story straight. My 15-year-old son loved cars and learned to drive on our farm when he was 11. His crazy uncle Car Nut loved that he loved cars and gave him a racing driving class as his Christmas gift. I spent a few months prepping him in a sports car at the go-kart track, and then took him to the NASCAR racetrack for the class, even though he had never driven on the street. He did great in the little Formula car, getting up to 180 on the straightaway, but towards the end, coming out of a chicane, he missed a shift and accidentally put it in first. This locked up the rear and he spun out, going into a chain-link fence backwards. All I saw was the dust cloud, but he was okay, thanks to the roll bar, neck brace, and helmet. We spent a good part of the drive home rehearsing what to tell my wife, and how not to use the word crash. We told her after he finished college. So is it really a lie when you tell the truth just years later after it is kind of obsolete news? That's always the best way to confess something to somebody. It's like, yeah, so guess what I did 10 years later? So I have a kinda dad story. It involves my dad's best friend and former employee at the time. My dad built this custom birdhouse specifically for purple martins because my mom loves birds. So he builds a custom house and then hoists it like 25 feet in the air. It looks like a 2-story colonial house and is about 3 feet on each side and 4 feet tall. It is beautiful. So my parents went out of town and my older brother and I decided to do shrooms and light off fireworks. We came up with this brilliant plan to see if either of us can aim Roman candles and shoot the flaming balls into the birds' house holes. So yeah, we have surprisingly great aim. The bird's house ended up catching on fire, and I had to haul it to get the hose back there so we could put it out before his labor of love burns down. The next day, we're surveying the damages, and it's not good. The whole front of this birdhouse was crispy and charred. So my brother calls my dad's friend, I'll call him Jerry, and tells him what happened because we needed a ladder fast. Jerry, being the champ that he is, laughs and decides to show some pity and helps us come up with a plan. He brought over his work van, and we stood a big ladder on top of the roof of the van. We brought paint, and I held the ladder steady while my brother touched up the birdhouse. Jerry never said a word to my parents, and neither did we. Through wind, rain, snow, or sun, our paint held up, until about 15 years later when my brother and I finally told them what happened. I swear I could see the pride in my dad's eyes. See, you could have just revealed it to them right as they got home, it would have been fine. Well, I personally can't remember any specific time of my dad trying to hide something from my mom, because I think they're a little bit too tight together to be keeping secrets from each other. But I challenge him to leave a story, whether about me or about his parents, somewhere in the comments. But that's all I have for today. Hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or night wherever you are, and enjoy the video of Faye trying to get to a grasshopper.
You're gonna open the window?